our guest speaker today has a hard stop at 3:30, so I'm gonna try not to ramble, but Amanda, you wanna do a warm, fuzzy welcome for our friends?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our week or bi-weekly call now. Just a quick housekeeping thing. We are recording this call, so by participating in the Zoom meeting, you are consenting to the meeting being recorded for access by our community members unable to attend live. Oh, I lost it. The recording will be available on our YouTube page.
Excellent.
Yes.
Know our mission?
Do I
No,
know our mission?
I not send that verb to you. Our mission here, we the people, by the people, for all the people, otherwise known as FATP. I really like that, for all the people, um, is to all right, let's do it together. Is to make
Advocate to our
good
legislators by telling our stories
make
and being
positive
honest
changes. Yes.
and being part of positive changes for people with developmental disabilities.
That's the sum up of it. And my goodness, I'm so glad that you guys are here. Uh Mental wellness is a subject that may not feel linked to everyone with advocacy, but we all know because we do it every day, all day throughout our life, that by doing that mission, by pressing through and sharing our personal stories, what we're doing is sharing the most painful parts of our lives and putting ourselves at a vulnerable position in hoping that we make a connection. And I knew this before, but not like until I met you all. And when we started to do a really beautiful thing last year on how important it is for the overall mission to always, always, always make sure that our mental health, our self care is first. And sometimes that can be incredibly overwhelming as caretakers. It feels like it, for me this week at least, it resonates very deeply. Just one of those coincidence, not coincidence things that this happens to be the week we're bringing it up because it's been a tough road going. Oh my goodness, the legislators responded, the governor put press releases, the media's responding, and the unsaid message after good job is like we bit a toenail off of a giant evolving monster that we have so much work to do while we press through our challenges and keep our sanity. And I have learned across through pain and trials and trauma that my mental wellness is a daily, every single daily practice, and it's not perfect. And that's kind of the beauty of life. And one of the people I consult with regularly is Susan Brenner. She's on the call with us until about 3:30. She's got a hard stop. She has an incredible way of making it not like an overwhelming, daunting task to maintain mental health. It can actually be really simple, small steps, a little bit at a time. So, Susan, oh my goodness, thank you so much for joining us today and talking to us about this really important subject.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. So welcome everybody, and I appreciate you guys inviting me. And I hope that the little bit of information I can give you will be helpful. But like you said, our main focus today is talking about mental health. And I know that caregivers of special needs children, face immense challenges, and that often go unnoticed. And behind your daily routines, there's high stress, emotional turmoil, and significant health risk. And it's much more significant for you individuals, compared to other caregivers of people who have children that do not have disabilities. So it's really important, like Stephanie was saying, that we take care of our mental health. And one thing that Stephanie and I were talking about yesterday was, we have this challenge. You think about the challenge like a big pie. And if we try to eat that whole pie all at once, we're most probably going to choke, right? So it's about learning how to be able to slice that down into one piece at a time and not getting overwhelmed. And I know it says it's a lot easier said than done, right? So one thing I want to just kind of start with is a wolf story. And it's about an Indian chief who's talking with his grandson. And he's explaining to him that all of us have this battle that's going on inside of us. And it's between the good wolf and the evil wolf. And the evil wolf is, boastful, envious, angry, frustrated, anxious, all those kind of characteristics. And then the good wolf is mindful, peaceful, loving, and caring. And so the grandson sits there and ponders that for a minute and then asks his grandfather, well, which one survives in this battle? And he simply replies, whichever one we feed. And when I first read this, I was like, wow, this is the way we think. And the more we start feeding into that evil wolf, the better we get. And then the more irrational thoughts we have, the more anxiety we have, the more frustration we have. It just kind of keeps rolling. Not that we intentionally want to do that, but it's all behavioral. So the more we start thinking a certain way, the more we start thinking a certain way. So what I want to kind of talk about a little bit today are some different techniques to use to help, one, recognize the type of irrational thoughts we're having, and then what kind of tools can we use to help redirect that to the present moment so we can regulate our emotions better. So I guess the number one thing is creating awareness of the thoughts. Because a lot of us are in autopilot, and we're not even realizing how irrational many of our thoughts are. So it's through the practice of mindfulness that we can begin to create that awareness. And I'm going to talk about a couple of different techniques to try, but the main purpose is to try to stay in the present moment. And if I told you we stay in the present moment all the time, I would be lying, because we always have thoughts coming in, right? But it's about understanding and realizing that every thought we have, we don't have to have a dialogue with it. We can simply observe it, pull away and go back to something in the present moment. So we're not just ruminating on that and making it bigger and bigger. And a lot of our thoughts maybe aren't our own. They could be from childhood or some other traumatic situations that happened in our life that got us thinking that way to begin with, right? But the good part about that is, let me get a drink, is that it is behavioral. So what I mean by that is we learn how to think that way, so we can also learn how not to think that way. So let me just use an example. Let's say I want to practice mindfulness today. So I'm going to put on a guided meditation. We're not necessarily going to meditate at this point. But the meditation, we want to listen to one that's guided. And why it's guided is that it's a voice talking to us that we can follow. So let's say it's telling me to relax my shoulders or my jaw or whatever it's saying. I'm trying to stay present with it, okay? So first we want to make the intention that while I'm listening to this meditation, I'm going to try to stay present and that I'm practicing mindfulness. And so what that means is when a thought pops in, whether it's a good wolf or evil wolf, I'm going to redirect my thoughts back to that voice in the meditation. So it's just, the meditation is just something like a honing source that we can come back to. And that can be a lot of different things, which I'll give more examples of. So I'm listening to the meditation, thought pops in, observe it, pull away, go back to the voice. And what we're doing by doing this is we're creating awareness of thoughts coming in, and that we don't have to have a narrative or a dialogue with every thought. And if we're not feeding into that thought, it's just going to get on its wave and leave. And I know over 20 years ago, when I first started practicing mindfulness myself, I felt like every thought that came in had a suction cup. It sucked onto me, and it just pulled all the energy out of me. But the more I realized that I don't have to entertain every thought, and if a thought's not entertained, then it leaves. It actually leaves. And that makes me kind of overwhelming too, but it's the truth. And the more that we can practice observing and pulling away, then in real life, a real thought, we're going to be able to observe those same thoughts coming in and be able to redirect it. So in the practice, like we're using the example of the meditation. So that's the place I can pull back to, right? But it could be that I'm, just not even practicing mindfulness, but some of these thoughts come in. I have awareness of them because I've been practicing. So I could maybe then, the thought pops in, it's very tempting to feed into it because it's a very familiar thought. But what I can do is maybe just take a moment, take a couple deep breaths, try to stay centered, and try to think about my breathing. Because one thing, I noticed too, is when I'm more anxious, how am I breathing? I'm doing more chest breathing. So it's like I feel like my lungs are like this big, right? Just right up here. So we might want to start thinking about elongating our breath. Think about breathing more from the abdomen area. And think about almost like extending our lungs. And there's tons of techniques around that. One that I like a lot that's so easy is the box breathing. And so just think about a square box, right? So we want to inhale for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, and repeat. And there's a lot of research that shows that if we even just do something like this for just a matter of 4 times in a row, that it will neurologically shift us. And it's such a simple task, but if we don't practice them, we won't be able to utilize them when we're in regular thought. So that's why the practice part is so important. And I think the biggest challenge of actually practicing is just remembering to practice, right? So one thing about me, I've always wear bracelets. I like bracelets, but there's a reason for them. I put my hands a lot too, so I see them a lot. And so I use that as a sign to myself to check in and ask myself, where are you at right now? Are you present? Are you where you need to be right now? And for a living, I sit, which isn't the greatest thing for my body. So that's also, my bracelets are a sign of, how are you sitting right now? Because if I cross my legs or hunch forward the whole time, after a full day, I'm going to be in pain, and I know that. So if I can just keep myself mindful about the way I'm just sitting, just something as simple as that evening I feel better. So Stephanie's going to have a handout, I don't know if it's attached to this or not, but I'm going to review a few of the items. But you will have that as a handout as a resource to be able to go back to. And I think doing this, that resources are so important. And, just so you can review things and reread things, remind yourself of the different resources, or even maybe printing off what she's going to post for you guys. Tape it on your bathroom mirror or on your refrigerator or whatever, so you can see them frequently. Again, another reminder, right? And when we're in the stress of things, I may not automatically just think of, oh, that's right, I could do that square breathing. But if we have that paper on the fridge or wherever, we can easily read it. And then there's our instructions. Pick one, right? So I don't have my glasses on. So here's just a few tips, okay? So whether you're feeling furious or freaked out, here's a simple mindfulness trick to send chaos, packing. So stop whatever you're doing and name 5 things that you see. And then 4 things that you hear. And then 3 things that you feel. 2 things that you smell. And then 1 thing that you taste. And just doing this simple thing just switches gears. And it just, takes that tension away for that moment. And then you can go back or engage into whatever you were doing, whatever that frustration was. If it's, dealing with your child, and there's nobody else to give you a timeout. But simply doing this takes what? A minute or 2? You just take a breath. And your child can be like, what's going on here? Just giving them a breath. And then we can re-engage, but we've shifted our gears away from that feeling of, feeling furious, angry, whatever that might be, right? So another one is like the right sense that could really help you and calm you. Excuse me. So this would be aromatherapy. And right now, actually, I've got some lavender in my diffuser. And just by having that experience of it, so I'll have stuff like that while I'm doing my sessions to keep me just kind of calm and in line and in focus. And you can simply just use, there's different oils you can get from the store. Lavender and any of the citrus oils are more of the type that will help shift some of the hormones, like cortisol, into more of a calmer state. So you could even just put a little bit of lavender, on a tissue or something like that, and just lightly put it underneath your nose, and just do a few nice deep breaths, and just do it calmly. And just that aroma itself is calming. Another one is yoga. And a lot of people are like, I'm not that flexible, or I'm not a yogi or whatever, and that's fine. It's not about necessarily needing to know all about yoga, but it's just being able to stretch and release. Because a lot of our tension, which is energy, is snapshotted into our bodies. So we need to find ways to be able to release that. Another thing would be like the child's pose. And the child's pose is to, get on your knees, and then you sit back onto your calves, and then you spread your knees out. And then you lay your chest onto your knees, and you stretch your arms straight forward. And this gives a good stretch into the back, the hips. It's again, a lot of releasing. And just by staying there just for a couple minutes, do a couple rounds of breath, just to, lean into that. And again, just to give you that shift. And again, that's releasing the bent up energies, because we're storing them all the time. And it's just so important to be able to release. There's this doctor that I read all of his books and listen to him on audiobooks, and his name is Dr. Peter Levine. And he talks a lot about stored energies and ways of releasing. And one of the things I've read and I started observing, they used a lot of examples with animals. And if you have an animal, especially like dogs, they shake things off all the time. And at first I thought, I've only seen or thought about my dog like shaking maybe after I give him a bath, right? So I started really observing my dog. And so we used to do this walk every day. And we'd go past this one fence, and it was a privacy fence. So we never knew if those dogs were out or not, right? When they were out, Bailey and these dogs would just bark all the way down to the end of the fence line. And it was amazing because every time we hit that corner, Bailey would pause, shake, turn the corner, and go on. But what was she doing? She was shaking that off. She dropped that energy of all that barking and frustration right there, and then moved on. That's transitioning versus I call it stacking. So stacking is never transitioning. I just pull this event to that event to this event. And I just look at like boxes on top of my head. And then when I finally get home and start relaxing, maybe watch a little, Netflix or whatever, and all of a sudden I start feeling anxious. It's like, what the heck's going on? Well, it's because all those boxes you stacked on your head just fell on you. First, let's be able to transition from one thing to another, and like the dog, shaking it off. We're not piling that on. So we're releasing energy each time it's produced. Does that make sense? Even though I don't think I could hear anybody, but okay, so let me check my time too real quick because I could very easily go over. Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention too is I also do a therapy that's called EMDR therapy, and it's a rapid eye movement therapy. Sorry. Are you there? I apologize. I did not silence my phone. So EMDR therapy is rapid eye movement therapy, and it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And through that therapy, it helps us shift negative beliefs that we believe about ourselves that limit us in our life. And this therapy allows us to reprocess things so we can snapshot the truth versus continuing believing the negative belief. So we can just use an example on that. Let's say that I believe I'm not good enough. So I'm a sales rep for State Farm, and some promotion comes up. Well, I'm not going to put my resume in the hat because I wouldn't get it anyhow. So that's how my negative belief starts influencing in my life. Where the truth is, I'm fine the way I am. I'm okay. And then that would influence other decisions or choices or things that we do in our life. But it's our negative belief that holds us back. I want to just leave a couple minutes here too, because I am kind of restricted on time. If anyone maybe has a couple quick questions, and then I can also give some contact information for myself if anyone would like to talk more, on a more personal level or private level. Does anyone have any questions about what I've been talking about?
Hey, Amanda, can you do that? Request everybody to unmute thing that you know how to do while somebody's going to come up with a question here, because we do have them. One of the reasons I really wanted you on here is that part of EMDR. And the way that it was explained to me is it is the most evidence-based, data-driven method to improve people who have post-traumatic stress disorder, especially they study it within the military.
Right.
However, we know on this call that the traumatic events that us families go through every single day
That's right.
I mean, literally every single day, there's things we face that the general population will never see. And how my brain works is I really liked understanding the science of it, that when a traumatic event happens and I'm experiencing stress, my brain isn't firing on both, using the whole thing to have that rational thought of it's okay, you can breathe. It's all right. You are safe and you are going to get through this. And what I really like about EMDR is what you're doing is practicing rapid eye movement. So by walking, by biking, by anything you do where you're moving both parts of your body, you're also exercising both parts of your brain. Even if you're looking left and right really fast, that's how I understand that it works. And there's no mental strain. We don't have to face all of that trauma we face. We're literally just learning how to fire physiologically. So could you just give some families some helpful ways that if they're feeling triggered and stressed and I'll give you an example. Their kid is banging his head into a wall and you're not sure how you're going to get through this moment. What's a simple technique that they can do so that they can press through to get everybody to safety and get to the other side of this issue?
Well, what to do exactly with the child, I don't know if I can totally respond to that. Just mentally, right.
Yeah.
But that would be the time to do some deep breathing so you can recenter yourself to reevaluate how can I take care of this situation rather than jumping into that child's energy and now you're a part of what's going on. Versus be able to be on the outside, kind of looking in and deciding how do I need to respond from here versus reacting. And that's something that on a more individual basis I can really, really break down for you guys, or maybe I'll come back for another talk where we can get some feedback from everyone and find out some points that you guys really want me to drill down on. And I'd be more than happy to do that too. But it's about, again, as soon as an event like that's happening, that's almost like a signal to ourselves. What do I need to do for myself right now so I can recenter? Because this child needs me right now. And like I said, because you don't need to be a part of that energy. If you become a part of that energy, then everybody's amped. And no one's going to be able to help the situation. Does that kind of answer your question?
Absolutely. And I know you got to run. So I will go ahead and give everyone your email and contact information. And that way, she can answer other questions and tips and tricks. And Tommy, I see you. I see you. I hear you. Go for it. Yeah. And yeah. Nope. I can't hear you yet. Let me press that button.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing some tools and some techniques, because the truth is so often we have found ourselves as sacrificial lamb, where we will help and help and help and forget to care for ourselves. So
Right.
the positive selfishness of self-care is something that I thought you shared, and I thank you for doing that, and I hope we can come back and have some, you can come back and we can have some deeper dive on this. I appreciate the tip sheet, and thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so, so much. Appreciate you taking the time. We know you're busy saving minds.
Okay. Thanks again, Stephanie, and we'll talk soon. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.